during the time of the captivity from the Persian Empire to the Greek Empire under Antiochus Epiphanes. Two kinds of feasts came out, and God got it covered by predestination, of course. Not so. It is a progressive revelation. Hanukkah is here. That falls around December, the same time we are in right now. And the Feast of Purim is developed here just before Passover. Passover will be the first of the many feasts of God. This was just added later during the time of the 62 weeks. So here Hanukkah coincides with December. So should we be celebrating this season of winter festivals? Because of Hanukkah, yes, we can. But the Jews celebrate Hanukkah just looking back at the past. They could not see in the future. Hanukkah had something to do with this. We talked about this, the second coming of Christ, the cleansing of the temple. It also has something to do with the Antichrist. The revelation of Hanukkah is very deep in its imagery, type, and shadow. And in the Bible, the feast, it was mentioned in the King James Bible as the Feast of Dedication. Hanukkah, it means dedication or rededication, for that matter. In regards to the temple was defiled. Where's the temple? Sometime here the temple was defiled, so the Maccabees revolted and they temporarily had some independence until the Romans took over. Then Herod married into the dynasty of the Maccabees, the Hasmonean dynasty, and he tried to beautify the temple. That's another subject, but our focus is on Hanukkah. So can we celebrate December alongside with the world? Yes, but I said, can we use the word Christmas for December? Can we use the word Christmas for Hanukkah? If you understand the real meaning of the word Christmas, then Christ for the masses, the anointed for the people, then we can, because Hanukkah is dedication. We dedicate our lives. There's also what we call the cleansing of the temple. Let me write it here. The cleansing of the temple. The temple was defiled by Antiochus, which is a type of the Antichrist. There's also a type in our lives, of course. We are also defiled by the world. And by knowledge, we can be free. The truth shall set you free. So, our typology for that cleansing is spiritual. But we have to go through the history first before we give the types. And Jesus Christ also cleansed the temple in his time. I'm not talking about Maccabean time. I'm talking about the time of Jesus Christ. He tried to cleanse the temple. He drove away the money changers. This is about Maccabee. So Jesus Christ tried to drive away the money changers and those who are in the temple plying their trade. So let's have later we're going to talk about its type and shadow for our life. That's why Hanukkah is important, not as a ritual that we're compulsorily mandated to do, like Passover. We could read that in the New Testament. But Hanukkah, although it's not written in the epistles, it's written one time when Christ visited the temple during that feast of dedication. So, so if we can celebrate, how do we celebrate it? It's the same way the Maccabeans cleansed the temple. So let's get back through history. What is the feast of Hanukkah and how it came about? A short history, and then the types. We'll talk about the types. So it all began. Let's go back in time. The four world empires. I presume you're all familiar with that. The four world empires that took over Israel. It's four insects also in Joel. So the four world empires, just to give you a glimpse of what we're talking about. Babylon, Medo-Persia, Grecia, and Rome. And in these four world empires, I said a while ago, the Feast of Purim will be developed in the time of the Persian Empire, and the Feast of Hanukkah will be developed in Grecian Empire. Oh, I forgot to download the little horn. The little horn of Antiochus, but I draw that before. So this is the vast empire of Alexander the Great. When he died, it was divided among his four generals. Seleucus took over the lion's share of the pie. He took over a vast tract of land. He also took over others. And Ptolemy withheld his share. The others, Cassander, Lysimachus, faded into obscurity. Now it will these two armies battled. These two generals, descendants of these two generals, battled. Particularly the descendant of the Seleucid Empire, Seleucus, which is Antiochus. That's where you get the city of Antioch. His name Antiochus. Antiochus. He battled with Ptolemy, and he wanted to enter the temple, but he was prevented to enter the temple. During his pass towards Egypt, Ptolemy held Egypt. And when he wanted to enter and visit the temple, because it was well renowned in the older times, then he was prevented. So he got angry and he said he'll be back to seek his revenge. And more so, Daniel chapter 8, he lost his battle, then he vented his wrath on the promised land, on the, what was the wording in Daniel chapter 8? The pleasant land. So, what did he do? He defiled the temple. He sacrificed a pig in the altar, a swine. So, this is abhorrent to the Jews, because God forbade them from this animal. He deliberately wanted to do that. He also has a mission. The mission of Alexander the Great is to force Greek culture all over his empire. Isn't it familiar today that we force our children to adopt the cultures of the world subconsciously? Subconsciously, because we don't teach them the truth. If many in Israel who gave sway to Antiochus Epiphanes, they did not stand for the truth, except for the family of Mattathias Maccabee. Where's Mattathias? Later, I'm gonna look for him. This is Mattathias when the order came down to his province to follow Greek culture, forbidding them from practicing their religion. He rose up in revolt. He went to the mountains and started a guerrilla force to overthrow Antiochus. So, what did Antiochus do? First, he defiled the temple. He forced people to not to follow the law. If anyone circumcises their children according to the law, um, there was one woman who circumcised their children. What did Antiochus do? He killed them and tied them into a string and put it in her neck as a necklace. Imagine your necklace are your children being killed. So Antiochus did many horrible acts against the Jewish people. You can read that in Daniel chapter 8, the little horn. So let me draw the little horn. I drew them before. I should have downloaded. I saw it yesterday, but I didn't download them. So let me draw them again. I'm not perfect in drawing. Just to let you know, in Daniel chapter 8, this is the goat. I don't know the ear of the goat. So he had a singular horn. That was Alexander the Great. Killed the ram, which is Persian Empire. Then he died. That horn was broken, was said in Daniel 8. Then it spread into the four winds. Then one of that wind became the prominent horn that extended to the promised land, to Israel. So that is what you're going to read in Daniel chapter 8. So the goat, I don't know the ear, how to draw the goat's ear. So the goat represented Alexander the Great that died, and that little horn that came out. By the way, just to inject this, is this little horn similar with the little horn in Daniel 7? For the Seventh Adventists, it's the same because they directly apply to the papacy, just for their 2,300 days translated into years from the time of the 70 weeks down to 1844 for their prophecy, for their personalized prophecy until 1844. So the little horn, they will not they do not believe it is Antiochus. But let me tell you something. Before you apply to the Pope sometime in the future, he is acknowledged by the Jews. This is where Hanukkah came from. After 2,300 days shall the sanctuary be cleansed. That's that cleansing of the sanctuary. That is Hanukkah. That is the dedication. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's go back to history. So Antiochus jumped. Antiochus oppressed Israel for keeping the law, and he forced everyone to adopt Greek culture, Greek sports, Greek the Greek language. I don't think that's and the Jews were against that, but forcing them not to fulfill the law. Is it familiar that someone in our ranks tried to coax some of our brethren not to fulfill the law, not to fulfill the commission from God? It's very similar, right? The Nicolaitan spirit of the denominational churches and some message churches, and it's spilled over to our group that someone would say, do not follow that instruction. Just follow what you want. Like hedonist. So do what you want, just don't follow the instruction that was given earlier. So the same thing that he forced the people of Israel, except that Mattathias, Maccabee, he built an altar to Jupiter in the temple. So he defiled the temple. Did you know the Christmas tree? Your let me find some Christmas tree. Did you know that the Christmas tree decorations are the Christmas tree decorations, the wreaths, the evergreen leaves? They might have placed that in the temple because Antiochus, as a pagan, was forcing his his practices to the Israelites. It's a type of what's happening to the church today. By the way, someone is the microphone. Someone is Dennis. Please close your microphone. Dennis. Okay, thank you. So where was I? It's in the messenger. Forget. Okay, let's continue. Hey, we mentioned that many times over. And they substituted the Christmas tree from God into their own version, even using the name of Christ. Okay, so Antiochus was the one that championed worldliness as a type and shadow for us. So what happened? So during the time of Antiochus, he defiled the temple. He built an altar to Jupiter until Mattathias Maccabee, the old person here. He was previously a priest, high priest or priest, and he retired. And when the edict or the memorandum of that law came to their province, he killed some Jew was instructed to make an offering in their gods of Zeus and their gods and goddesses. Mattathias killed that Jew for violating the law and being an example for us to others to violate the law. Then he escaped with his family. Then his family led a guerrilla force. And fast forward to 2,300 days, they were able to free Jerusalem from the tyranny of Antiochus. Antiochus died in his chariot. I read from Brother Jackson's Contender. And in cleansing the temple, that's where we get the Hanukkah, Feast of Hanukkah. The Feast of Hanukkah was added to the previous feast. The previous feast, added to the other feasts. Where did it happen? Exactly in our time. And I call on all our brethren, we should be witnessing this to others. Because some Protestant denominations or fundamental churches say we should not celebrate Christmas because it is pagan. They're correct, but that's defensive. What about offensive? What should we be doing? We should be witnessing. We should be removing all the pagan decorations in the temple. So the cleansing of the temple in the time of Judas Maccabee is removing the idol, even the altar to Jupiter. So there is a festival of cleansing of the temple. There was a miracle. God vindicated them when the oil of the menorah, they found there was a little oil there. The oil of the menorah was just good for one day. It lasted for 8 days. That's why in the menorah of the Hanukkah, it's not just 7 branch. It's 8 branches and plus one in the middle, that will be 9. And it's just a type. But it would get into the head of the level 3 of the ENDTIME groups here in the Philippines. That there is not just 7 church ages. There's 9. Alpha age and Omega age. Okay, I didn't download the picture of the. Here it is. That's how they could consider it how they could use the menorah of the in Hanukkah, okay, because it's more than just 7 lamps. Okay, so the priest in the temple, uh, when they lit the oil, it lasted for 8 days. That miracle vindicated their cleansing of the temple. It vindicated their feast of Hanukkah, their feast of dedication. That feast, even though it's not directly given by God through Moses, it is a type of progressive revelation. It's a type of the spoken word. God did not directly give it, but it is God speaking through them that they can have that feast. They can celebrate that feast, and it has a type. It has a type for us. Much like walking in the light, what we should be doing in our families, there's the part of the spoken word wherein it's still leading by the Holy Spirit of God, but it's not written word for word in the Bible. In their case, the Torah, that was the original Bible they had, and it was not written there. It just came about sometime later, the time of the 62 weeks, the time of captivity and restoration. So while they got back to their country, but there was this drama about Antiochus, and Antiochus is a type of the Antichrist in the future. So let's the cleansing of the temple. It has a type. This is the rededication. I said before in my previous, we have been teaching this for years in our local church. We should have rededication of ourselves, our family, our church. How do we rededicate? We put away the things that hinder us. Did you know that there are many things that hinder us from serving Him completely? Making us like Herodians or the Pharisees, Sadducees, that we're all only concerned with the mundane, the small things, but we do not completely serve Him. So let us go through history. So from Antiochus Epiphanes, Jesus Christ would give a prophecy. That prophecy is in Matthew chapter 24, Luke chapter 21. When ye shall see therefore the abomination set up in the temple. Christ was talking of the future. But the only time abomination was set up was in the time of Antiochus, when Hanukkah was given. He forewarned the believers. Of course, the believers would die in the time of Christ, when Christ gave that prophecy. But it would be in the future. It will be in this time. The forewarning to the believers applies to us. That goes for those interpreters of the Bible, which follow some rules. We are not the original ones being spoken to, but those who were living then would understand. They did not understand. It is for our part to understand what Christ said, the abomination of desolation set up in the temple. Let him who hear take heed. So there are two that will destroy the temple. The first, Antiochus defiled the temple. That was in the past. But Christ talked about the future. That you shall see the temple, not one stone will be left upon another. The temple will be destroyed. and not one stone will be left upon another. That means to say, the temple will be destroyed by General Titus. The temple will be waylaid, and they uh, it happened in 70 AD. This is the time of the Christian era, and Christ gave a warning. The warning of Christ: if ye shall see therefore Jerusalem surrounded by armies, in King James, compassed by armies, then flee to the mountains. Normally, if enemies come, you should go into the gate to be safe. But Christ's instruction is the opposite. You have to flee to the mountains to escape what will happen, because Christ gave a prophecy: not one stone will be left upon another in the temple. That is another time. Remember Christ, here is the prophecy, Luke 21. It's also in Matthew chapter 24. When ye shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. What is that desolation? So there is a type. First, Titus, he took away the menorah. He made a relief for that to commemorate his victory over the Jews' rebellion. It took him a hard time to subdue them. So the soldiers were so angry, even against the instruction of Titus, they destroyed the temple. Destroying the temple is different from defiling it. So the prophecy was not yet fully fulfilled. It was just partially fulfilled. That not one stone will be left upon another. Here, Titus took away the furnitures out, much the same as the Babylonians did in their first captivity. So, in the destruction of the temple, only part of the prophecy was fulfilled. Titus did not defile the temple. Titus was even against that the soldiers will destroy the temple. If you read in the 70th week of Daniel, Daniel chapter 9, verse 26, and the people of the prince shall come and destroy the city and the sanctuary. So the city, the walls will be breached, and the city will be destroyed. They will be victorious in their siege against the Jews, the rebellious Jews. The rebellion began in sometime in 67, 64 AD, and at 70 AD it will be the culmination. So this is the attack of the Romans in the city of Jerusalem. The rebellious Jews had some victory over the Romans for a time being, but the Romans kept sending legions against them. Remember, we had a topic about the kingdom. Judas wanting to have the kingdom and all the rest of Israel, and Christ said, it is not for you to know the times and the seasons. They freed Barabbas instead of freeing Jesus Christ. They chose rebellion, the zealots, against Christ, because they were disillusioned with him. He does not look like a freedom fighter that will liberate us from the Romans, just teaching us to submit to the Romans. Much same the time of Jeremiah, teaching Zedekiah to submit to the Babylonians. That's why he was imprisoned. Here Christ was crucified by Caiaphas just for he claimed for the salvation of the nation, because he was afraid the nation would be destroyed. It would be better for one person to die than the whole nation perish. And in his miscalculation, it really happened. He coaxed them to release Barabbas, the zealot, and the zealot fomented more rebellion. And this is a picture of an artist illustration depiction of the man of sin sitting in the temple of God, showing himself he is God. So when Christ spoke about the abomination of desolation in the temple, it will not be fulfilled in the time of Titus. It will be fulfilled here in the future, in the time of The last week of Daniel, in the middle of the week, when ye shall sit in the temple of God, showing himself he is God. So, um, Christ set a type. So, Antiochus was a type. Titus was a type on what will happen in the future. Uh,
The
Titus gave under Titus, the instruction was to flee Jerusalem. So the Christians who were taking heed of Christ's instruction were saved from tragedy. Because, you know the tragedy there? Before they were overcome, they had nothing to eat. So they were forced to eat their children, their babies. You can look at that in Josephus' history. They were so hungry they could eat any dung in the street, any hay. The rich people have hay to eat. Imagine, they're like animals like Nebuchadnezzar eating hay. The big they don't have anything to eat because of the blockade. So it is so terrible to be left behind. If you're not following Christ's instruction, you will be left behind. It's a type of the rapture. You must know how to follow instruction so you could escape the great, terrible thing that will happen. What happened to Jerusalem was set at a type. Matthew chapter 24, verse 22. There shall come a time of great tribulation, such as was not since that very time. Christ was talking about the future. This future. The second coming of Christ, Armageddon. But he used Jerusalem as a type. And all of this are tied in with Hanukkah. How? Because Christ said, let not your escape be on a winter. What is winter? That is our time right now, December, winter. It's also, how does Hanukkah tie in not just with winter? It ties in with the temple. The rededication of the temple. Christ was talking about the temple. When Christ spoke about the abomination that make desolate, it's connected to Antiochus Epiphanes. It's connected to Hanukkah. It's connected. There's a revelation of what will happen to the temple, what will happen in the end times, and what will happen to us. If we do not follow instruction, we'll be left behind in the city and we will die along with the siege, along with the other people who did not believe Christ. Even if you are a follower of Christ, supposed follower of Christ, but you don't follow his instruction, you'll die there. And we are so sober, we're so conscious when we have instructions to get vaccinated so that we will not fall in this sickness, infectious disease, etc. We know how to follow instructions to receive help, ayuda, to receive pensions, to pay our bills, and many other things. We should also be studious with God's instructions for the family, how the family would escape for the church, how we could escape the great trial that is to come. And Christ said, so two things tie in with Hanukkah, winter and the abomination. And we have the cleansing of the temple. Christ has an example of cleansing the temple. When Christ cleansed the temple, he was also setting a type. Our bodies, our families, not just our body right now. Remember the Christmas tree from God? It does not only apply to our bodies, it applies also to our spirit.
I hope by Eric shows
It does not only apply to a person, it applies to the family,
eternity to eternity.
applies to the church, even applies to the nation. The word tree in the Bible. I'm talking about in the Bible. So, here in winter time, Christ said, let not your escape be on a winter or on a Sabbath. What does that mean? Let's talk about the literal aspect first. I already have videos on this. You may look for it. Search for it in our groups, Progressive Revelation Ministry and Kogeo End Time series. Now, what did Christ mean when he said, "Let not your escape be on a winter"?
Okay, so how do I close this? We close the screen share. Okay, so I hope our Eric showed the close the screen. So please share the thumbnail and please share the thumbnail, Barminan. So I hope our Eric will show that eternity to eternity chart. Maybe you can do that, okay? So anyone, please find the tribulation period so I could explain the connection of Hanukkah to the war. I need an illustration of the tribulation period. Next time, Brother Eric, maybe show, if I'm showing the eternity to eternity, please show it also in the video. Okay, this is it. Start from the middle of the week. So 2,300 days is almost that 7 years. So roughly 6+ years. And from the middle of the week to, could you go to, let me go left first. So Ezekiel 38:39 is in the church ages. The rapture is at the beginning of the week. So you cannot show that. Oh, can you show that? Okay. So it's the other side. You need to make a connection. Yeah, yeah. Okay, you're here in the church age. So last time out in our broadcast, we talked about the Ezekiel 38:39. Please go to the right. Okay. Please zoom on Laodicea. No, 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 on the right. You're going left. Go to the church. You were already in the church age. Okay, there. Okay, zoom downward, a little bit downward. You see Russia, the hammer, the sickle, the Trump. Oh, as though President Trump will be re-elected. Okay, so you see the hammer and the sickle. That's Ezekiel 38:39 war. If you want a copy of this chart, you may just request us in Kogeo End Time series, admins. And last week, we talked about Ezekiel 38:39 war. Starting from this, Israel will become an underdog. Right now, Israel is still strong. You look at the Star of David there at the left side, they're still strong since 1948 up until before the beginning of the last week of Daniel. During Ezekiel 38:39 war, she will no longer be a strong nation. God will humble her. And what happened in Titus, what Christ said in Matthew chapter 24, let not your escape be on winter. We're still focused on Israel war, Israel in prophecy. She will no longer be involved in war because she will not be able to defend herself. What saved her during Ezekiel 38:39 attack by by Russia and all its allies is God Himself when God is sanctified. So entering the last week of Daniel, that's the rapture. Entering the last week of Daniel, that's almost 2,300 days. So go to the tribulation. Go to the tribulation. So Barminan, go to the tribulation. Tribulation is the okay. So that 7 years is almost 2,300 days. That's only 6+ years. Something will happen at the end part. So that's a type. So what happened in the time of Antiochus will happen again, because Christ spoke of an abomination that makes desolate. That will happen in the middle of the week. Daniel 9:27. But in the midst of the week, he shall cause the sacrifice and oblation to cease. So the Seventh-day Adventists interpreted it as the middle of the week as the sacrifice of Christ on the cross, and Brother Branham copied, but I've never read it from him. But Brother Branham surely taught this middle of the week, the papacy will take over the rebuilt temple. So that starts out in Daniel chapter 12, 1,290 days. So the other half of the week is 1,260 days. But if you read Daniel 12, there's 1,290 days. Could you zoom out a little? Okay. Starting from the middle of the week to the time of Armageddon, that's 30 days extra. That's where you read 1,290 days. And it mentions in Daniel 12, from the abomination, from the time that the abomination is set up, shall be 1,290 days. That means to say, the abomination will be removed after 1,290 days. So please zoom out, Brother Menan. Please zoom out. Remember, the temple will be defiled again in the middle of the week because the papacy will take over. Now, after 1,290 days, it will be the cleansing of the temple again. So, the cleansing of the temple in the cleansing of the temple in did my volume come down? Okay. So,
I have a question.
okay, before you ask your question, let me finish my statement. I'm just asking if my volume came down. Okay, so as I was saying, go the cleansing of the temple is in the last 45 days of this Daniel 12.
In the recorded video,
Your your signal is not complete. Oh my goodness. Can, okay, can you try to speak again? Hello. Okay, maybe
I
something
think
wrong with the
you can
signal.
leave first, then go back again in order to louder your speaker.
Is my voice ano? Did my voice uh come down? Did the volume come down?
It's okay. It's okay.
Okay. Now, so the separation of the sheep and goats, that's also the time of the cleansing the temple. So we're talking about war in Israel. We're talking about Israel and prophecy. We're not yet talking about our family life or church life. So there will be a cleansing of the temple again, but it's also the cleansing of all of Israel. Daniel 9:24, reconciliation for iniquity, end of sins, finish the transgression, seal up the vision and prophecy, anointing the most holy. So that is cleansing of the temple. At the same time, Israel is reawakened again to know Jesus Christ. And she is chastised. During this last week of Daniel, the other half, she has to hide in the wilderness of Judea from the wrath of the Antichrist. That's Revelation chapter 12, the woman. So she will be hiding during that time until Christ comes and they will be saved. It will be Christ that will be saving them again. This time around, politically, militarily, physically. Okay, so you may proceed with your questions, Berminan. A while ago, your sound was intermittent. So we may open our question and answers. Hello. So, Brother Menab, Brother Simon, Brother Enoch, and many others, please ask your question on our topic. Do you have a listed question on our subject? I believe you have two folders that we have prepared. One is before Hanukkah, the winter escape.
To hear me?
I can
Hello,
hear
do
you
you?
now. I can hear you now. I can hear you now. Yes.
Do you hear me, Brother Francis?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, our topic is about the Israeli prophecy, winterscape, Hanukkah peace typology. So,
Do you have an
what is the
illustration?
significance of the the uh winterscape? Why you want to mention that in Israel prophecy in connection to Israel?
Okay.
So,
It, it,
a while ago, the previous
please show a
video,
picture.
it
Brother Simon.
hello, hello. You
Yes, yes,
explain
yes.
about you explain about the Titus when Jesus Christ prophesied about the Roman army, the 70 AD. So, what is the significance of this in Israel nowadays?
So please look for the picture, Simon. Don't leave it like this. You have a cell phone, look for a picture that you have prepared. You should have prepared for that. Okay. So the significance of winter. Today, I've been looking. You should have shared that while I was explaining it. Okay, winter. Let's talk about winter. Right now, we are nearing December. So it's almost winter. And winter was mentioned by Christ. Let not your escape be on a winter. Now, why would Christ mention that? So let's talk about the war in Israel. But winter this time around talks about, and Christ said, when you see Jerusalem compassed with armies, ye that are in Judea, flee to the mountains. So why do you have to flee to the mountains? Before the armies arrive to besiege the city, you have to flee. Now let's talk about modern day prophecy. Something will happen in Israel, especially in the middle of the week. Christ instructed the Christians to escape before that happens. So the Christians that followed closely the instructions of Christ were spared from that agony and misery, that terrible tribulation that's going to befall them in their city. The Christians were able to escape into the mountains. Brother Jackson said, no Christians were left behind in the city. So that's it's a type of how important our instructions is for our families, believers. We have to always warn them what will happen to them if they're left behind. Now, for Israel, it's like this. The message of the two prophets are the two wings of a great eagle that flew the woman. Do you have a illustration of the Revelation 12 woman with the wings of a eagle, two wings of an eagle? They're the message of the two prophets, and it will be carried to them by the 144,000. So what will happen to the Revelation 12 woman? The nation of Israel will flee to the wilderness. Brother Jackson interpreted the wilderness as United States or other parts of the country. But that's Jews in dispersion. But there is the woman in Israel. We cannot airlift the whole nation. So she will flee to the wilderness. So what will take over in Israel are political Jews. Actually, political Jews are in control right now. They're using the Christians for their own ends to become a peaceful nation, but not knowing they're fulfilling the Antichrist global agenda. So because of the tribulation, they have to flee before war comes in. What is war? Do you have an illustration of our the map? Europe and the East, where let's say China and India, will converge in Jerusalem. Do you have a map of Armageddon? If not, just show the eternity to eternity. If you don't have a map of even Ezekiel 38-39 map will do. But if you cannot find it, then go to just show the tribulation period chart of Brother Gan. Barmenan. So let not your escape be in the winter. Winter represents it's too late. Literally, if it's winter, you cannot travel. You cannot travel. And Christ even mentioned, let not your escape be on a Sabbath. Because during the Sabbath, all doors are closed. Nehemiah wrote about it, that you're not allowed to sell, uh, to uh, to move about. All gates are closed. What does this represent? Okay, Sabbath also represents point of no return. Yeah, jumping out, jumping off a cliff is a point of no return. Okay, but so Sabbath represents point of no return. I hope if you will prepare a picture, always cover the other, make it two so that the blackness will be covered. So Sabbath is a type. Do you have a timeline of the Sabbath? Like the seventh day is eternity. They have an illustration of that. Sabbath represents a point of no return. Winter represents hardship to escape. For our families, it means you're too late. For Israel, those who did not follow, please show the eternity to eternity instruction. That tribulation period. But Eric, if you're listening, always show the eternity to eternity when I mention that. So the tribulation period, the tribulation period. Okay, thank you. Sometime in the middle of the week, there will be an instruction to escape. That represents winter. And Hanukkah is in winter. And we're connecting all this now. Hanukkah happened in winter. And you know the terrible things Antiochus did. You know the terrible things that happened in the siege of Titus. And you know terrible things that will happen during the last week of Daniel, the last half of the week. The terrible things that will happen there are all connected to Hanukkah. Hanukkah connected to winter. So when you read, when you read Christ mentioning Hanukkah, sorry, he mentioned the winter and Sabbath. Sabbath means you're too late. It's over. You've crossed over to the seventh day. Then Hanukkah represents winter. When you mention winter, you can recall Hanukkah. Feast of Hanukkah is always done in winter, in December. And we're nearing that time. So the war in Israel will lead to that point, that the abomination will be set up in Jerusalem. As it will be set up in Jerusalem, then let him that is in Judea flee to the mountains. That coincides with Revelation chapter 12, the woman with the help of the two wings of a great eagle, the message of the two prophets here, left side, will flee to the wilderness. Will flee. The dragon wants to devour her and her child. But the dragon went after the remnant of her seed. So there will be a terrible persecution here. the latter half of the week. And there will be an escape. She's no longer fighting a war. She's escaping the war. The ultimate war will be between whom? When Christ returns back. Could you? Of course, there will be a World War III. Could you zoom to the right? Show the World War III. The nations of the world will prepare to go to war. As Revelation 9 says, to prepare for the armies of the kings of the east. So they will converge in Jerusalem. Zechariah chapter 14, Jerusalem will be besieged again. Actually, Jerusalem will be taken over. And as they prepare for World War III, you see Armageddon, Armageddon. Yeah, okay, you see Armageddon there? That's World War III. But Christ will interrupt World War III. So Armageddon will not be between East and West anymore. They will unite against Jesus Christ. Could you go zoom upwards so to show Jesus Christ's second coming? The second coming of Christ will be misunderstood as a alien invasion. And the nations of the world that have been blinded from the Bible will train their ordinances against Jesus Christ. The war of Armageddon will no longer be Europe versus the East, China or India or Philippines or wherever, Japan. It will be between all these armies of the world, the kings of the earth. That's Revelation 19 versus Jesus Christ. Christ will be the one fighting for Israel to save Israel. Could you zoom upwards, Brother Menan? Just drag it upwards to show the second coming of Christ. Or zoom out. Zoom out. Okay. Okay, that's the second coming of Christ with his armies from heaven. They will be the one to fight the wars for Israel. So while Israel is fighting her own wars, she is still in apostasy. But she will be revived, restored, resurrected, reawakened under the two prophet ministry, the 144,000. And she will no longer fight her own war. It will be Christ who will fight for her and the armies of heaven. She will be saved. She will come to know Jesus Christ later in the 45 days extra in the millennium. Like the heathens, she never knew Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ will reintroduce himself to them as a mighty warrior, as a conquering king, like what they have been looking for. But of course, they will suffer persecution, oppression before that time. Okay, question. Let's have some questions. As you ask your question, please look for the pictures you have prepared for that question. Okay. Verminan, I thought someone speaking. Oh, you have lost your signal. Okay, Brother Simon's not here. Oh, JP David, do you have any question? Interrupt me if you have some question. So Simon has returned. You were mentioning something about any
Yeah,
question?
my question is this. On the time of Antiochus Epiphanes, they did the sacrificing the pig, right? So could it be will it be a reminiscence
Yes,
like
yes,
it was going to happen again on the third temple?
yes. It will happen again. That's why Christ mentioned the abomination that make desolate. What happened in the time of Antiochus will happen again. It didn't happen in the time of Titus. In the time of Titus, the temple was just destroyed. But here in the middle of the week, that's the abomination that make desolate. Verminan, could you maximize the picture? Okay. So so if you have other pictures about the question, it it's
So
it
you
will
you you mean to say, Bar Francis, the the sacrifice in the temple will be gonna it will be pig ano pig sacrifice again, or is that literal pig sacrifice the abomination, or it is the spiritual abomination during that time?
Do you have an illustration of the pig sacrifice? If not, just show the middle of the week. If you have your own picture, so just show it. Maybe you need an assistant. Okay. So during the time of Antiochus, it's a literal pig. During the middle of the week, it's a spiritual pig. And do not throw your pearls to the swine because they will trample it underfoot. Those are always the reasoning of Eli Soriano in saying, we are not allowed to share you deeper revelations. Okay. So the pig is represented spiritually by the Catholic papacy. He will take over the temple because of this conflagration, this conflicts. So it's not no longer just a pig. Instead of an altar of Jupiter, it will be the throne of the papacy. That's the counterpart event in the middle of the week. So show the middle of the week if you don't have it. Or maybe show sitting in the temple of God showing himself he's God. So it's the middle. It will happen in the middle of the week. Yes. But Eric always show the chart when I mention the chart, mention the tribulation or the church ages or whatever. So people will can easily understand the timeline when they see the chart. So the middle of the week is the Daniel 70 weeks, Daniel 9:27. But in the midst of the week, he shall cause the sacrifice and oblation to cease. The direct application is not Christ on the cross. It's the same as Daniel 12. Daniel 12 said, from the time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken away. So Bergen wrote it down here, 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. Sitting in the temple of God, showing himself he's God. It's a type of Antiochus sacrificing a pig and putting up an altar to Jupiter. So Daniel 9:27, in the midst of the week, he shall cause the sacrifice and oblation to cease. It's the same as Daniel chapter 12. From the time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken away. When did the daily sacrifice start? When the temple was rebuilt. It will start in the resumption of the first half of the 70 weeks of Daniel. While there are daily sacrifices, the two prophets are there. Much like Christ in the temple, preaching to those people of the end to come. Okay, follow-up questions? Follow-up questions? We have just 30 minutes to go. So, Barpadon, Bargeri, and others, I hope you can train your family to ask questions.
Hello, Brother Rep. Hello.
This is JP. Oh, Simon again. Who is speaking?
Brother JP.
Did you come closer because your voice is very
Hello.
faint? Oh, Bar David, please
Hello.
come close to the microphone. Okay.
Okay. So my question is can we say that
Could you
Israel
speak louder na lang? Speak louder.
hello.
Okay, it's much more clearer now. Okay.
So my question is can we say that Israel is fleeing in winter right now?
No, Israel is fighting her own war right now. Israel is still a mighty warrior right now. She's still in Zechariah chapter 12. She's not yet in Zechariah chapter 14, where she is the underdog, waiting for Christ to save her. Israel that right now will not accept Jesus Christ to save her. She's not an underdog right now. She's fighting her wars mightily. As nations get angry with her, it's setting a stage for Ezekiel 48:39. But there will still be the rebuilding of the temple. Okay, so she's not yet fleeing. She's fighting. Wait until the tribulation period. She will, by the those that will flee will only be those that follow instruction from the two prophets. Like Christ gave an instruction in Matthew 24, flee to the mountains when the time of Titus comes. It was 30 years, for almost 40 years in the future. Christians should remember to keep the words of the prophecy in their hearts so that their children and children can be saved. So it will be the children of the Christians that will escape the wrath in 70 AD. Right now, Israel is not yet fleeing. He has no instructions yet how to flee. It will come from the two prophets. For us, we also have our own instruction how to flee the destruction, the mayhem. Okay, any other follow-up questions? So do not be content that just one of your children asks questions. Father, mother, ministers try to ask questions. Okay. No, the screen share has disappeared. So you should be at least show the eternity to eternity. If you're not showing other illustrations that you have prepared about Hanukkah or whatever, Barmenan is Barmenan here? Oh, Simon, you cannot share screen. JP David, please share screen. JP is not here. Bar David, please share screen. Don't leave it. Don't leave it hanging. So so if you're familiar with other pictures, whenever you ask question, you may show the pictures. Any follow-up questions? Bar Dennis, Bar Padun,
Brother
Brother Ricky.
Papa don't have battery on his cell phone, so that's why we can share screen right now.
So so JP, whenever they ask question, you study the vid. You study the on another device, of course, because you're sharing screen the thumbnail. On another device, you should have studied earlier the folder of pictures. Okay, and any follow-up questions? You want your family to be safe? Teach them how to ask questions. Without asking questions, you're not seeking the Lord. If you seek the Lord,
Morning, Brother
you're seeking
Francis.
for
Some
okay,
quiz.
okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Ano ba
It's
yun?
part of the word.
Brother Francis, what is the connection of Hanukkah festival in our time?
So I just explained it. It is the type of what terrible things. You know, the feast of Hanukkah was developed because of the terrible things that Antiochus did to defile the temple. So it will happen again. The terrible things Antiochus did, the siege of Jerusalem by Titus, it will happen again. So Christ mentioned, do not let your escape be in the winter. Do not wait until it is too late. It will happen again. Could you share, David, the tribulation period again? The middle of the week? Where will you be?
Next question, David.
Please, I hope you can show the tribulation period chart because that's what I'm answering. You're not prepared with the other pictures. So, Hanukkah is connected to that. Could you? I'm gonna explain Hanukkah. Brother David, could you share the tribulation period chart? Tribulation period chart. Okay. So any follow-up questions while David is looking for that chart?
Hello, Brad.
Tribulation period chart.
I have
Okay.
a question.
So enlarge
Uh,
it, Brother David. Enlarge it. Hanukkah
why
is
is Hanukkah
the last
celebrated
that
in the winter?
again.
Why is Hanukkah celebrated in the winter?
Because when Maccabees was able to retake the temple, recover the temple, it was in the winter when they had the feast of dedication. Then they rededicated the temple. It was in the winter, December. So that brings us to the recollection of that war in Israel, or that struggle to be independent from the pagans, Antiochus Epiphanes. So Hanukkah recalls that. Hanukkah recalls the time of Antiochus and their subsequent salvation from him. And what did they do? They rededicated the temple. We need we as temple of God, we need to rededicate ourselves, our families, our local church. We have to renew like the wings of a new eagle. We need to be renewed in the spirit. We need to have a renewed fervor in trying to fulfill the instructions of God. There is an escape. Christ said, "Let not your escape be on a winter." So that's connected to Hanukkah again. And it recalls us back to the time of Antiochus. That will be a short answer. Please maximize the picture. Okay. Uh, make it larger even more. Okay. Any more other
Francis,
question? Yes, Brother Ricky.
well, Francis, can you mention this time Israel? Can you mention an attack this time?
I can understand your question. Can you mention Israel?
Uh, Israel cannot accept Jesus Christ this time.
Yes, yes, yes. Right now, Israel is in apostasy. Remember 70 weeks of Daniel? She will be restored, right? She's not yet fully restored. The last week of Daniel is not yet has not yet run its course. So that's the last 7 years of the world. That's the last 7 years of Israel's apostasy. So when Jesus Christ returns, doesn't recognize him yet until it will be explained during the separation of the sheep and goats. Of course, to them, it's like an alien invasion. Eventually, they will find out it's Jesus Christ, the one whom they pierced, Revelation 1:7, the one they have rejected, they have sacrificed on Calvary, they have murdered on Calvary. So, uh, right now, Israel is in apostasy. She rejects Jesus Christ, but wants the help of the Christians for political means. Okay, it's only for political means. Any follow-up question? It has been discussed last previous weeks that Israel is mighty in battle because God supported her, but she is not yet in the perfect will of God because they still believe that whom what they have murdered is a false prophet. His blood be on us and on our children. That still hangs true until the last week of Daniel, when they will be the underdogs. Okay, I hope you can share this in the local church. Okay, Verdenis, others. Verdenis, you have to any question? So I hope continuously ask question. So if our church could not yet ask questions, she's still sick. She is infected by the traditionalist ministry from other traditional ministry from other churches, denominational or end time churches. Traditional ministry, who are the congregation, do not ask questions, but just enjoy nature, enjoy frolicking in the world. For them, listening to from the pulpit is enough. That's not enough. So you have to ask questions. You have to share the word because Revelation 10:11, thou must prophesy again to many nations, tongues, and kings. A follow-up question? Versa Menon has not returned. He cannot play the extra. Brother Simon, I hope you return to play the extra. Brother Simon, no more question? Okay, we can conclude this. If there are no more who wish to ask question. So, parents who have asked question like Sister Shirley Barriki, that was last night. Last night by Sister Shirley,
My
today
first
Barriki.
question.
Or Menon, question.
Okay, question. Um, you said a while ago that it will gonna happen again. So what is the typology of Judas Maccabee or the Maccabean revolt in the tribulation period in the last week of the Daniel, or in the middle of the week? The middle of the week is the abomination of Antiochus Epiphanes. He defiled the temple. So then after that, when Antiochus Epiphanes defiled the temple, the Maccabees will revolt and fight for the independence of the Israel. So what is the type of that?
That is the type of Israel starting to reawaken. As the Maccabees are mighty in battle. They were just numbering in the thousands, but they were able to defeat tens of thousands of the warriors of Antiochus in their wars in 2,300 days. During the 2,300 days, that's roughly 7 years. So the Maccabeans were the underdog, but they were able to win the war. So what's the Maccabeans are a type of Israel today. She is mighty in battle. In the tribulation period, there is an element of Israel that will escape in the wilderness. The father of the family of Mattathias Maccabee escaped in the mountains after killing the one that's sacrifice making a sacrifice to the pagan gods. So uh, Israel, the process of them militarily strong and gradually becoming an underdog. That's the spirit of Maccabee. So will Israel fight in the tribulation period? No. But she is receiving an instruction from the two prophets and the 144,000. So the process of being reawakened from the
Brother Francis,
Antichrist,
Brother
that's the
Francis,
spirit of Maccabee.
please
Okay.
uh, the Israel is type for the Revelation 12 woman. The Revelation 12 woman will flee to the wilderness because of the angry of the Antichrist. So the
So
anger of the Antichrist, they will go to the wilderness to feed themselves for 1,260 days. So during the Maccabean revolt, they fight for they fought to Antiochus Epiphanes, and they kill the one who defiled the temple. Then later they go to they will escape because of the the anger of the I think it's Seleucid, not Roman army yet.
okay, let me continue. Let me continue to make it clear to you. This is the part I didn't mention. And just make clear to me right now. The 144,000 will be the one that will be the type of the one fighting the battle. The Revelation 12 woman is the rest of Israel. But she uh in the during the tribulation she escaped in the wilderness. But during the time of the Maccabees, they're the nations that it's being fought over. Okay? The 144,000 will not be fighting a physical battle. She will be fighting a spiritual battle. She will be fighting for the minds and hearts of the rest of their countrymen. During the time of Maccabee, they fought a guerrilla warfare. You know what guerrilla warfare is? The reason they succeeded a few thousands versus tens of thousands over, let's say, at 8,000 versus 40,000, Antiochus. She fought a guerrilla warfare. If you say she struck hard, like much like Gideon, right? She struck hard, then escaped. Even David did the same thing. Okay, she struck hard. She struck hard. Then she ran away into the wilderness again. The 144,000 will be preaching here and there until they will be caught, imprisoned, and executed. So during the time in the last half of the week of Daniel, as she was fighting to bring the message out, she is like the Maccabean uh, freedom fighters. It's a type. Okay. Later, the Maccabeans. This is another type. Later, the Maccabeans will become the Hasmonean dynasty, where Herod will come to power. That's another story. So there's the Maccabean in the church ages, which brings about a political Israel, much like the Herodians did in the Essene Tabulation. Then there is the Maccabean type on the spiritual fight here in the tribulation. Before the Hanukkah feast was developed, after the war, 2,300 days. So after the death of the 144,000, the end of the last week of Daniel, then rededication can come around again in the temple. Then the reawakening of the Jews, the revival of the Jews, we will live in his sight. Okay, any questions? We have less than 2 minutes to go. Follow-up questions. Browse your pictures. JP David, browse the pictures that they've prepared. Well, Ricky, I have a
Francis,
question. Yes.
uh, when you mentioned about Titus history, this time to about Israel, can you can you reflection Titus history and Israel?
Could you come closer to the mic? Titus history. So,
Titus
Bernard, did
history,
you understand the question?
Francis Titus history. How about Israel war? My question, can you reflection?
Titus is a type of
Mm.
the instruction of Christ, similar to our family. Christ gave an instruction. When you see the armies approaching Jerusalem, flee to the mountains. Those that are in Judea, flee to the mountains. So instead of entering the walled city for protection, escape to the mountain. Because the walled city this time around will be besieged, and you have nothing to eat. You will eat your babies. That will happen to Jerusalem. So those Christians, parents, their parents actually, this is type for our family, who followed the instruction of Christ, they taught that to their children. Because by 70 AD, some of those Christians would have died. Imagine that's 40 years. Some of those Christians that have died, they've taught their children that instruction. So in 70 AD, when they see the armies, actually 65, 70, it's too late. Okay. 70 AD is the destruction of Jerusalem. So somewhere in 65, 66, they saw the armies coming and they remembered the instruction of their parents. Remember their parents. And they escaped the city. They were that in Judea, they didn't enter the city. They followed the instruction, they fled to the mountains. So when Christ said, let not your flight be in the winter, because winter, it's already too late. So if you wait too long before you follow the instruction, you will be besieged in the city. It's too late. Your children have to eat their babies because of lack of food. That literally happened in Israel. What about our children? Maybe not literal, but it will be a miserable life. So that's why you chastising your children is a much merciful way to save them than wait for the tribulation to come. Of course, before you get martyred, you will live a miserable life, terrible life during the Great Tribulation. So that's the type of Israel. Israel, during the time of Titus, is a reminiscence of Christ's instruction to the Christians. And God's instruction, Christ's instruction, today, today is the message of the hour. How to escape the coming conflagration. And if you don't want to study or don't want to ask questions or command your children or train them to ask questions, to know about this, talk about this in your family, you're ensuring them to be left behind to eat their babies in the tribulation. You're ensuring that they will be left behind. So Israel, Titus, that is a stark reminder of what will happen in the future. So that's why Christ, from the time of Christ, Titus has not yet happened yet. That's 70 AD. Christ lived in 33 AD. So when Christ gave the instruction, you have to be faithful to that instruction for 40 years, for almost 40 years, 30 to 40 years. So that's almost a lifetime. It's a lifetime of training your children. Okay, so do you know how to zoom that, Barpadon? Zoom. Anyway, so we have less than 15 minutes to go or 10 minutes to go. Any other follow-up questions? This is one of the Christmas messages. You have to teach, you have to train your children to seminar, to invite for a seminar this coming Christmas of the world, or Christmas for us, Hanukkah. As the Maccabeans removed the Christmas decorations, worldly Christmas decorations in the temple, so should we remove the worldly things in our children's lives, our own life. Worldly things include sin of omission, includes are not following instructions. Let's say you only vlog about cooking, also vlog about the message, not just cooking. Because if you vlog only about cooking, you vlog about good nature or any other things in the world, you'll be left behind. So I'm not saying it's wrong to vlog anything else, but vlog first about Christ and the message. That should be our priority. The other things are just extra. We can enjoy them legitimately. We can justifiably enjoy them if we fulfill the instruction of Christ. We we remember, we always recall, we always reckon the instruction of Christ in our lives. Then we can enjoy other things. But if you enjoy other things without recalling all these instructions, then you'll be left behind. You'll be part of the city that Titus will destroy. Jerusalem now represents, the siege in Jerusalem now represents the rest of the world that will be besieged by the Antichrist. Okay, any other follow-up questions? Barpadon, maybe close your share screen because so follow-up questions? I hope you can teach the rest of our church members to ask questions. Maybe none of them are even watching this, or a few of them, just maybe very few watch this broadcast. Uh, ask if your children is not here, ask them to watch, then report and share and preach about it, seminar about this. So they're still eating food offered to idols by Antiochus. They have gone to the Greek ways, sports and other recreational activities, except God. That's the mission of Antiochus then, to Hellenize Israel. So the Hellenization of Israel is a type of our children enjoying the world but not enjoying the Word of God. They put little time for the Word of God. If you even assert authority, they put a lot of time in worldly things. So parents, much like Christ instructed the parents in 33 AD before 70 AD, those are the parents that will instruct their children in 70 AD how to escape. So you as a parent right now, you should know how to instruct your children. Of course, we have another subject about that. If you wish to ask question how to train your family, just contact us in Kogyo End Time series. Okay, we have 10 minutes to go, or less than 10 minutes to go. Any more other questions?
Or no more, Bar Francis.
Okay, please give us a closing prayer.